Hey everybody, we are here at the closing table, kind of doing a different scenario, or I guess different format. We're on Zoom together with Stacy Catmull of the Lending Co. Stacy, why don't you give your elevator pitch? Tell people about you.
So I've been in mortgage for over 10 years. Um, Geez, I don't know. I wasn't ready for this, Grant. Let's see. Let me think about it.
You're good. You're good. Just
What
tell
is
them that
my
you're
pitch?
awesome and you do a good job.
Um, let's see. Okay, so yeah, my name is Stacy Catmull. I am the owner of the lending company. I've been in mortgage for over 10 years. I think the thing that makes me really good at my job is that I'm really good at taking a scenario and solving problems. So finding workarounds, finding loopholes, things that we can do to really make loans work, which is important with the subject that we're talking about today.
Yeah, no, you're definitely creative and go through a lot of find the loopholes, the good ones anyway that are good to go through. Anyways, so there's a couple of things we want to talk about today. One, we had somebody reach out to me and talked about um, credit reports and that they were nervous to get a hard credit report because I think it affects their credit score. That's kind of the uh, stipulation, or I guess the myth that kind of is out there.
Yeah.
So tell people more about that. If they get a hard credit hit or report, what's the things that go on with it? Are they going to get affected on their credit or not?
Yeah, so I mean, there's lots of different options when it comes to pulling credit. If usually when I'm talking to a client, if they think their score is below a 620, I'll usually do a soft credit pull, and a soft credit pull gives us the same information that a hard credit pull does, but it doesn't affect their credit. So if somebody's really trying to work on their credit and get their credit score up, we usually start with the soft credit pull if they don't know where they're at. Credit pulls, a hard credit pull lasts for 120 days. So like even if you're like maybe 4 months out, right, you can still get your credit pulled, so that we know what to work. The other thing about, so sorry, I'm being confusing. So soft
You're
credit
good.
pulls, so there's totally an option if people absolutely don't want their report pulled, but we need to pre-approve them, and it's a soft credit pull, gives us the same information. If we're working on credit, though, sometimes it's advantageous to do a hard credit pull, because when we do a hard credit pull, we can pull different scenarios. We can do like what if scenarios, or we can say, hey, we want the credit score to be here. Like, what can we do to get the credit score there? So there are advantages to doing a hard credit pull, even if you are trying to grow your credit, because it gives us like more detail of what will increase the credit score. Hard credit pulls, they usually affect your credit a few points. It's usually not, like a huge swing. It's when you're getting inquiry after inquiry after inquiry that is really going to tank your credit. But if you haven't had your credit pulled in a couple of years or in a year or whatever, and we do a mortgage pull, it's not going to kill you. The other thing that people don't know is that once a lender pulls your credit report, you actually have 45 days to have a mortgage pull done as many times as you want to, and there's no effect to your credit score. So that way you can actually shop lenders and you can talk to different lenders, and as many as you want can pull your credit report and it doesn't hurt. So yeah, so
So
there are definitely options when it comes to credit.
so people can always get a loan estimate if they choose to and things like that. So I have a friend right now that he has kind of a lower credit score. It's his wife that has a lower credit score, and they've been trying to talk to credit bureaus and things like that to get it fixed because it was just a kind of a missed payment that went to collections. It wasn't a whole lot, it's paid
Oh
off.
yeah.
What would they do in that situation to up their credit?
So collections are tricky. It's really the creditor that has the ability to remove the collection. So they have to work with the creditor directly. A lot of times people will, like if it's just like one collection or whatever, or a small amount, maybe like they have a balance they need to pay off, they can like negotiate, hey, I'll pay off this balance if you remove the collection. A lot of creditors are willing to do that to get the collection paid. If you've already paid it and there's a collection, then really you're just kind of at the mercy of the creditor and whether or not they're nice. You can One of the things I do want to talk about with credit that I've seen actually a couple times in the last week that is not great. So there's a couple of options that you have. Like, say you have a ton of collections, right? And your credit score is really in the dumps and you don't know how to fix it and you need help fixing it. So a lot of people will do that, and there's different ways to fix your credit, and there are different people who can help you with your credit. One of them is like, say, for example, you get on, they'll have like a monthly plan, like where you pay like $50 a month or something, and then they help you they help you repair your credit. Well, in my experience, those types of companies, it just takes a really long time to repair your credit because they want you to keep paying that $50 a month. So there's no hurry with it. Another thing that I've seen people do is when they have consumer debt is they go to these agencies, and basically what happens is the agencies negotiate their debt for them, and then they, instead of paying the different creditors, they pay the agency, and then the agency pays the creditors for them. And especially when you're buying a home, that can be a really, like, that could be a really big problem, because you kind of are actually, it's almost like being in a chapter 13 bankruptcy, where like they have control of your finances, like they have to give you permission to get a mortgage or to purchase new things. And then they're in control of like who gets paid and when they get paid. So my advice would be to work with somebody, instead of paying a company like to negotiate your credit for you. You can call and negotiate your debts on your own. You don't need a credit company to do that for you. So first try to negotiate your debts on your own. Make sure you get something in writing, and also make sure that you get something that says that they'll remove that collection once they collect the debt. But also, if you're just in a place, and sometimes I have borrowers who just are in a place where like we don't know how to fix it ourselves. And so in that case, I would recommend working with somebody in credit repair who you don't pay until you actually get the result that you need, because your results come much quicker, right? If somebody isn't getting paid until they perform, then they're going to work a lot faster to get you to where you need to be. So I have a couple referrals for people like that, but that's really, if you really need help with credit repair, that's who I would recommend working with.
Okay, that's great. I'd recommend, just not going to collections first off would probably be
Yeah,
the best thing, and just to pay off debt. But sometimes things slip,
they do.
and that,
Collections are really hard though, because they just sit on your credit report forever, and late payments too are really hard. They just sit there for a long time. So
if only there was a little bit of like forgiveness of saying like, look, I am doing better as a borrower. Please up my credit, rather than just like be perfect your whole entire life. You
yeah.
know.
Yeah, it's easier to build good credit than it is to fix bad credit. So
Yeah.
just be aware of your debts. And then another thing too, one of the probably the most common like late and collection is student loans, because people don't actually realize when their payments start on student loans. Like once you graduate from school, like you got to get on top of those student loans, and you got to make sure that you're paying those student loans, because I've just seen student loans wreck people's credit for years and years and years and years, and they'll have so many lates and collections. I mean, I feel like at least half of student loans have lates and collections on them. So even if you don't have it, like you got to figure those out as soon as you graduate. It's really important.
If someone has a low credit score but can still qualify for an FHA loan, and they buy a house with that FHA loan, can that benefit their credit if they're making those monthly mortgage payments on time?
Yeah, and that's one way to, like, if you have collections and if you have bad credit, one way to improve your credit is to get a trade line and to do well with it, right? Because they want to see that you have a history. So for sure, like a mortgage, I mean, for sure is a very helpful trade line because it carries a lot of weight. Also installment loans like a car or something like that. But you can even like, jump on, like you can get a revolving credit card, but just something that shows, because a lot of people will have debts, they'll have like collections, and then they think that, well, I can't open any other trade lines or it's going to hurt. But when all you have is collections on your credit report, it really hurts. So you need to have a positive trade line too, maybe two or three.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, another thing I want to talk about today, so we got All-Star break this
Yes.
weekend in Salt Lake City. Very exciting. I haven't bought tickets. Have you guys bought tickets?
No.
Okay. I heard they're like thousands of dollars to go to it.
Yes, we'll just
Yeah.
watch it on TV.
Yeah, I'll just watch it on TV. It's just like it's not really a competitive game anyway. It's just for fun.
Yeah.
So I'm a Sacramento Kings fan, and so it's very exciting for me to see there's four Kings players this weekend. Keegan Murray that's going to play in the rookie challenge. Kevin Herter shooting 3-point contest, and then you got Domas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox in the All-Star game. So it's very exciting for us in
That is
Sacramento because
exciting,
we haven't
yes.
had success in a really long time. So it's just very fun. But thinking about that, it got me into, let's first talk about like college athletes, the NIL deals that are going on right now. I've always thought like, man, like you got example like Bryce Young, quarterback at Alabama, that's making millions of dollars with his, and, CJ Stroud too, and of other players as well that are making a ton of money, and they're not buying real estate, as far as I know. There's no news articles about it, but why do you think that is that they're not buying real estate?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons. I think first of all, like athletes are hesitant to buy real estate because they don't know how long they're going to be in one place. They know that they're always going to be moving someplace different. And so I think they're hesitant to invest into real estate because they're just going to move anyways, right? So people don't want to, buy and move and take the risk. Another reason is because, I mean, there are some tricky things when it comes to income with, things like NILs and contract work and all that kind of stuff. So the most important thing I think as a pro athlete is I think you can really overcome that. I mean, I still think that there's a lot of benefit to buying real estate, even if you're going to be moving on. Like that's actually an amazing way to build an investment portfolio, right? I mean, the best way to build an investment portfolio is to start as a primary residence living in your home. You can do low down payment options. Even you can even do like a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex with a super low down payment. And then when you move, you keep that property, you rent it out or you Airbnb it, whatever it is that you want to do. You move to your next property, you buy that as a primary residence with a super low down payment again, right? So you can, I mean, by the time your career is over, you could have 5, 6 properties in different states that are making you money. And even if you wanted to, you could, sell them all, cash out, and buy your dream house cash at the end of it. So there's lots of benefits to moving around and buying real estate as you move around.
I think those players that do move around a lot, that get traded or they're, free agents constantly or anything like that, they're in the biggest position to build a real estate portfolio. You've
Yeah.
got like, it's not just the superstars that can buy real estate. I think of Patrick Mahomes, he's going to be at Kansas City for the rest of his life. And he's still buying real estate. He's bought real estate in Texas and Oklahoma and, in Kansas City and a bunch of other places. And I think that kind of maybe a lot of like rookies or just kind of low paid athletes feel like, oh, I can't buy real estate like Patrick Mahomes because I'm not Patrick Mahomes.
Right,
But
right.
you got like, for example, there's Isaac Rochelle. He and his wife are on TikTok all the time, Allison Cooch, and they just moved to Vegas. But they own a piece of property in Indianapolis when he was on the Colts. And it wasn't like a really fancy house. It was just kind of a tract home, 3 bed, two
Yeah,
bath, look like maybe 2,000 square feet. And that, like, I think the professional athlete lifestyle is we need to live a lavish lifestyle. Like what did I spend my first million on? Right.
right.
And that's I think so. I coach high school athletes and these are 17, 18-year olds. And then I'm thinking the NBA, they're 19, 20. They're still kids, they're
Right.
still teenagers. And they're
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're going from, especially a lot of athletes, they come from nothing. All of a sudden they're getting to the NBA or the NFL and they're making millions of dollars. And like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, this is so much money. And it is. But it's really tempting to have to use that money to go buy a Rolls Royce or these really fancy watches and suits and stuff like that. But I think investing in real estate can really benefit a lot of athletes, especially that aren't superstars, because they're only going to be in the league maybe 1 to 5 years at most.
Yeah.
And then after that, they're going to go have to get a regular job. I know of other like backup quarterbacks that they're out of the league now and they're just kind of entrepreneurs, which is great because they can use that money that they made from their earnings
Yeah.
to invest in their business. But also too, like if they're not running a business or like a venture capitalist group or whatever, like Russell Westbrook does, invest in real estate. And then when you're out of the league, you could always sell all those and then use that money to either buy like your next dream house or use that for your entrepreneurial endeavors. So I think a lot of athletes are missing out on a huge opportunity.
Yeah, well, and I totally agree because I think you're right. Like, when we talk about professional athletes, we're always thinking, like the superstars. But there's more non-superstar professional athletes than there are the superstars, right? And so and I think that like there's always that worry of, what's going to happen after I am finished with this. And really, like, real estate is such a great way to make big chunks of money to create something else, right? So maybe you're starting with, like, a duplex, and then you move up to a fourplex, and then, all of a sudden, you're refinancing those, you're pulling money out, and all of a sudden, from just your real estate, you have $1 million, and now you can invest in a 20plex, right? That's actually bringing in a really good cash flow. And then, what, you can sell that property, or you can refinance that property, cash that out, and you can invest in a 500 unit. I just really feel like the key to real estate and is to just keep buying, right? It's to keep in the market. And if you keep in the market over a span of time, real estate always goes up. I mean, sure, we might have some downturns here and there, right? But over a long history of time, real estate always goes up, and it's always going to be a pretty secure investment.
Real estate is always going to be the long-term game. It's never make money quick. It's not make money quick scheme or anything like that. I think of, like you were saying, like even the 20plex, the 500plex, that, like, I think of Alex Rodriguez, that he owns a ton of these like apartment complexes and hotels and stuff like that. And so, I even think, like, if college athletes are at a point with their NIL deals, now there's a group of twins, I guess it's just a set of twins really, that play for the University of Miami, Florida,
Mhm.
and they just signed a really big deal with Raising Cane's, that they're each making over $800,000 from these
Wow.
deals. Now we talked about this before, depending on how their taxes look, are they going to be 1099, or are they like considered luxury, like kind of employees? I don't know if I put luxury, but just kind of high-end employees, that they're making 800,000, 880,000 a year. And then these girls go on to like the WNBA or play overseas, but they still have that contract with like Raising
Right.
Cane's. Then, like, yeah, then they're like, if it's a W-2, yeah, they need to buy real estate or invest. Something that I was reading about is that a lot of athletes don't buy real estate because they're getting advice from their agent and their financial advisors, and their financial advisor makes money through their 401ks and their
Yeah,
Roth IRAs and their
exactly.
mutual funds or whatever. And so, yeah, they're going to say, oh, yeah, don't buy real estate for like 4 or 5 years, because
Yeah.
it's not in their benefit for you to buy real estate, because they're not making money off that, you know? I mean,
Right.
they do say, like, we want stability, but it's like what we talked about before. Like, you don't have to live the lavish lifestyle. Laurie Markkinen or Jordan Clarkson at the Jazz don't need to buy these fancy houses over in Pepperwood, or in East Holiday, or even Park City. Like, they can live in, like, North Salt Lake, Bountiful, Sandy, Draper, where you guys are at too, and that's still a really nice location. And
Yeah.
it's I think the thing a lot of athletes want is privacy. So a place like maybe Pepperwood or Park City, where it's kind of gated, they can feel uh like the press isn't going to bother them a whole ton.
Yeah.
So I guess that could be the thought, but also, like, they could still rent, and they're making enough money, they could put at least 25% down on investment property and still make money off that. So I think there's a lot of
Oh,
ways
yeah.
they can go about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's lots of options, right? I mean, even like, so with the NIL deals, I mean, those are a little bit tricky because usually you have to have a history of, like, those are paid as like self-employment, right? So you have to have a couple years history of being self-employed. But if you're getting $800,000 for a contract, most likely you can just buy something. You could buy your first house cash, especially in Florida right now. You can buy a house cash for $300,000 in Florida, a
Yeah.
really great one, and then you can do whatever you want with it. You can either live in it, or you can Airbnb. Yeah, I mean, you can live in it for a while, but then you could Airbnb it, or you could rent it out, whatever it is that you want to do. But you have that property, and it's going up in value over a span of time. And if you just do that, like, if you just invest in real estate for 10 years, just every other year, even buying a property, like, in 10 years, you're going to have a nice cash flow, and you're not going to have to necessarily worry about, like, how am I going to pay my bills on a monthly basis? Like, you're going to have a good nugget that's going to be covered. And there's not really anything else that you can do that with. I mean, with my 401k, I mean, we lost 20% this year. Like, how exciting is that? That's horrible, right? So, I mean, those are definitely like long-term plays. But I mean, in Utah, in the last couple of years, I mean, we saw our equities in our homes. Like, we had a couple, they bought a townhouse for 350. They sold it not even 2 years later for 550. $200,000 in 2 years, right? And that's not always how the real estate market's going to be, but you are going to always have increasing equities in the real estate market, and it's a good solid investment. And I like what you said about like you don't have to be doing things that are extravagant. You don't have to go straight for the apartment complex. Like you can just start small and then upgrade and then upgrade and then upgrade, or you can stay small for a while, like while your family is small or while you're single. Just keep buying those properties that will rent really well, and you can build a really secure future for yourself.
There's a couple athletes that just comes to mind. Well, I guess first off, when these athletes invest, or at least let me start over. When these athletes get into the professional leagues, they have achieved their ultimate goal in life, and a lot of them have come from nothing, and they want to change. They want to break the cycle of their ancestors by not making any money, being super poor. They want to break that cycle. Now, a problem I can see happening is that they get all this money. I think of John Morant. John Morant makes, millions of dollars a year. He bought a house for his mom. So let's say that he buys it in cash. That's fine. The mom is on title and he's not. He buys it as like a gift, right?
Mm.
Which is great. It's a great story. But what if the worst case scenario, something happens to the house, your mom can't buy it, your mom can't, fix the things up or anything like that. So I mean, like if athletes are going to do that, they're going to gift these houses to their friends and their family and their girlfriends and all this stuff. Like personally, I would still have the house in my name
Yeah.
because if they at some point, like if the mom, like, I can't take care of this house anymore and has to sell it, and then she can make the money off it, which is also fine too. But what if you break up with the girlfriend or you break up with your entourage or whatever? You still want to own that house, in my opinion. But so I guess what I was going on with that is you want to create generational wealth with your real estate. You don't want it to make, I think of Zach Wilson, he's probably going to be out of the NFL soon because he's terrible. I won't edit that out, but it won't be in our short-term videos. But um, but if Zach Wilson's not going to be in the NFL anymore, granted, his family is already kind of just well off as it is. But if thinking of his kids, if he can still invest in multiple points of real estate, then he can have his kids, live in his townhome in New Jersey that he has, or they can live in a nice starter home in the Sandy Harriman area or whatever, South Salt Lake. And so I think these athletes that grow up with almost nothing, they need to know, like, okay, you're breaking this cycle for a reason. Don't screw it up, you know? And so like,
I actually agree with that. Like, what do they say? Like that, people who win the lottery, like they're bankrupt within like 10
yeah,
years or something
they
like
blow
that.
all the money. They get
Yeah,
advice from terrible people that are going to take advantage of them,
it
and they're
is
missing
true.
out. They're missing out.
Well, and you can take care of your family and you can take care of your friends, but you can also take care of yourself while you're doing that. Like, I don't know, this is just kind of funny. It's like you buy your mom a house, right? Your mom passes away, and that house is now hers to give to whoever she wants to give. Like, what if, like, I think it's really smart what you said, like keep the titles in your name so that you have the flexibility to do what it is that you want to do with them when that need no longer exists for the person. Or like I have seen so many couples who they'll put their names on the loan, right? But then they add like a girlfriend or something to title, and then all of a sudden they break up and the house is held hostage by that person who is on title, who has no liability at all for the loan. So I think that those are really, really good points. Like, make sure when you're buying real estate that you're working with somebody like Grant and myself who understand the repercussions of how it's going to affect you in the future. I think it is amazing to go out and to buy your mom a house. And a lot of people, that's what the first thing they do before they even, buy themselves something, because, they feel so thankful for everything that their mom has done for them. But there's a way to benefit your friends and family, but also make sure you're keeping yourself safe and that you can benefit too, for sure.
I think a lot of people would love to be in an athlete's position where they're making millions of dollars and they just think like, oh, I need to invest, 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 rather than I need to buy a yacht, a boat, a Porsche. and so on. Nothing against
Or
Porsches.
invest,
I
like
know
the
you
thing
love
is
Porsches.
too, I think too, though, they probably get a lot of opportunities and a lot of people coming to them with like startup companies and things like this, right? And so they're giving, $1 million here, or, $100,000 here, $100,000 there. That was something that was a mistake that we made early on. When we started making money, everybody with a startup company came to us and we were just divvying out money for startup companies, and none of those investments ever returned a dollar for us, not one. And had we put that into real estate instead of into, your buddy's startup company, like, where would we be instead? Because it's just such a stronger, more secure investment.
My family, ancestors, and everything, we have never had luck investing in stocks, bonds, businesses. It's always been real estate. Like ever
Yeah,
since my great grandparents moved from Holland here, that's the only thing that's ever worked out for us because it's tangible. It's something that you
yeah,
can hold on to. It's something you can fix up. It's something you have control over. You know, as if you're investing in a startup business and you're not having any of your hands into it, it's hard. Yeah.
yeah,
But it's also like, it's a big risk. I can't talk. Big risk, big reward
yeah,
scenario. And so you want to do it. And you have,
right.
there's friends that you want to support. Kevin Hart, he was asked one time, they said, what's the worst investment you've ever made? And he said, investing in my friends.
Yeah. No, it's true though, right?
Yeah.
It's
He
true.
said,
Like,
he
lost a
says, I
lot of
love my
money through
friend.
friendships.
Yeah. He's like, I have this one friend. I love him to death. But I've lost so much money from him. So it just goes to show real estate is the way to go. I mean, a lot of people have figured out, like I have some friends in Alpine, I sold their house. They have figured out stocks. Like they just know it down to a science. And I
Yeah,
try to talk with them and figure it out. And I just can't get it because I mean, it's a long-term game too. But they make millions of dollars from their stock accounts and it's really impressive. And so
yeah. And some people can do that, but most of us laymen, we're not willing to put in what we need to in order to learn that kind of stuff.
yeah. So if anybody's listening to this that's a college or professional athlete, just know you should invest in real estate. And if you disagree with us, tell us why. If you agree with us, then work with us and
Yes.
we'll make it work. We know people all over the country that can help in any state. So yeah, I think that's awesome. So is there anything else, any other advice that you would give to athletes?
No, I think, I think one of the biggest things too is just making sure that you go into it with a plan, right? If you know that you're going to sign a contract or you have some money coming in, like make sure that you talk to somebody and you make a plan before you actually like make a purchase, or before you file your taxes, or whatever it is. Like if you have something coming up, like make a plan about what you're going to do and what you want to do. Because if you plan, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail, right? So
That's true. So, well, thanks so much, Stacy, for your time. I appreciate it. And Sean, thanks for always hanging out with us too.
Thank you.
thanks, Grant.
Okay, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
Okay, sounds good. See you. Bye.